Previews World, and welcome to The Panel, a monthly comic book reading club where we choose a title, give you time to read it, and invite you to join us back for an in-depth discussion about everything between the pages. So, joining us this month, we have some fabulous guests, starting with Troy, who is host of Previews World Weekly.
Hey.
We have Carrie, who is the assistant editor at Gemstone Publishing.
What's going on?
And we have Maki, who's the administrative assistant at Third Eye Comics.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
And this month, we are going to be talking about our first manga title for the show, which is My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
Very exciting. I'm really excited to introduce people to a different type of comic book.
Yes.
So let's get started with a little bit of an intro to the background of the story.
Awesome.
My Hero Academia started being serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump in July of 2014 and is currently collected into 24 volumes as of 2019 and is still running. In 2016, a wildly popular anime TV series started and is on its 4th season with 2 animated movies, one in 2018 and one in 2019, and there's even talks of a live-action movie from Legendary Entertainment. It won the 2019 Harvey Award for Best Manga, along with numerous awards in Japan, including the Japan Expo Award. Now, before we go too deep into some of the details of the story, let's get a general idea of what our panelists thought of the story in general. What did you guys think?
So I'm super new to, I've read a lot of manga, but like I'm super new to like a lot of manga on top of that though. This one is kind of like a love letter to superheroes, which is definitely in my wheelhouse, and yeah, it was just hard not to like it off the bat.
What about you, Carrie?
It's one of those things like, for me, I started with the anime before getting into the manga a little more recently. I didn't, like, it took me a couple seasons to even get into the anime because everyone was like, oh, it's so good. Like, it's so fabulous. This is one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, there's no way it can be that good. So being the contrarian I am, I like refused to watch it just out of dumb spite. And then once I finally got into it, I was like, oh, they were right. Like, it is that good. So yeah, I like it a lot.
I totally relate to that actually. The dumb spite part too.
Yeah. What about you, Maki?
I also had a similar experience. I got into it via the anime. I hadn't been watching anime for a long time, and I hadn't been watching shonen for a long time. Cowboy Bebop's my favorite anime. Mm-hmm. So to swan dive into My Hero Academia, which has, I would say, an ensemble cast of characters. It was a lot for me, but it actually just pulled me back into anime, and to read the manga, it was just amazing just being able to realize like there are these panels that are like frame for frame of what I watched in the anime. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was just really, really cool.
Yeah, I got hooked from the anime because, everyone was talking about it. I'm like, okay, I got to see what this show is about because everyone keeps talking about it. Watched the first, 2 episodes, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then we got assigned this, and I was like, yes, I get to try it. Mm-hmm. And it's actually really good. It has that, superhero feel. It is like a traditional Western comic book, but then it's got all these great, the more emotional part of it, I think you get with manga, where you get this more internalized, it's more emotional. Yeah. So I was really interested in kind of the way that it was different, but the same from the comics that I'm used to reading.
Right.
It's as someone who's largely an American comic book reader, I really appreciate, and we'll talk about this I guess later in the show, but this idea that so much of the book feels like it's an old school approach to superheroes.
Yeah.
And just how they make you like the superheroes based on powers, abilities, and how those abilities match up with each other. That's kind of the stuff as a kid you kind of ate up. So I really like that about this.
All right, and before we get too in-depth into the art, let's take a minute to learn a little bit about the creator. Kohei Horikoshi graduated from Nagoya University of Arts. He's a big fan of Naruto and called it the greatest shonen manga ever, and it influenced My Hero Academia heavily. He's had a few shorter series prior to this, but none have gotten the amount of renown as My Hero Academia. Now, let's deep dive into the art. So what's cool about manga is that the creator is both the artist and the writer. So let's go ahead and start talking about his art first. What did you guys think? Carrie?
I love the art of My Hero Academia. It's so perfectly shonen. In terms of the way that the action is drawn and the way that the characters are just so expressive. But like on top of that, like you can tell that this is a guy who, and he's admitted as much, this is a guy who reads a lot of Marvel comics. And particularly with the way that All Might is designed, like he's designed almost as if like a Western American comic book hero has been like slotted into a manga. Just the way that his costume is designed, the way that his face is designed, a little harder lines than some of the other characters. I love it a lot. I love the way that some of the characters like grow even over the course of like this one volume. Deku goes from this like tiny little fragile baby boy to like a ripped like kid, and I'm like, oh, okay. But like it's so cool to see the characters evolve over the course of these stories and whatnot. I love how every character has their own thing. Like none of the characters look alike. They all clearly exist in the same world, but they don't suffer from the sort of like same face syndrome that some other manga characters maybe suffer from. You can tell exactly who everyone is just by looking at them immediately. So yeah, I love the art. It's very good.
I like that. Like they keep pointing out in the comic too that like All Might is drawn differently.
Yeah.
Like that's a running gag in the comic, and it was just sort of like, oh, that's interesting. Like, yeah. To your point.
I loved his art notes. Like every chapter, it kind of
Yeah.
like gave the idea of like, well, this is what I was starting with, and I love how they talk about All Might, and he's like, this guy ruins all my pencils. It takes so much to draw this guy. And you just see how much like thought went into designing each character and like giving each character that unique personality where it's not just the same character but with like different hair. And you're like, that's how you recognize that they're different.
All right.
What about you, Maki?
I mean, you all pretty much said everything, literally everything that I was thinking. But one of the things that I really did like was he's not afraid to make his characters look like messy or like gross or crazy. When Bakugo was getting consumed by that like
the goo
sludge goo monster,
Like venom,
like
basically.
you could literally see his face like peeling, like, and it was a little bit uncomfortable, but I really liked it. Like it was exciting.
The way that Bakugo's eyes are drawn in that one moment where it's like you can tell that like he's crying out for help in that moment with just the look in his eyes. I'm just like, oh,
but
my
he
boy.
still wants to be like the tough guy.
Right.
And
Right.
he, as you could probably tell, he's my baby.
I just feel like there's so much like action and like power in the images that sometimes I feel like I haven't gotten in some like Western comic book series where it's like, I don't know if it's something about like the line work, it's very dramatic, like everything is like overly emphasized and it gives like this heightened sense of like fighting and everything going on, like even the subtle moments where it's just everything is kind of overly emphasized and you
I love like the way that he draws Deku's tears in the moments that like Deku's being emotional. I'm just like, oh my baby brain.
Like little juicy wells of emotion.
I had a moment where like, I was reading, I was like, oh, this is pretty decent. I can kind of see why people like it. And there's a bit where like he's talking to his mom and his mom like, he looks back at his mom after he's found out he doesn't have a quirk. And his eyes are all tearful. It's like, now I like this guy, okay. I realized, reading this book, I realized my entire life I've been reading like, what do you call it, seinen? And like I don't read a lot of shonen. And so there was a lot of moments with this book where I was like, oh, the art style is very different from a lot of the stuff that I'm used to reading. And so again, maybe because I read a lot of American books, I read a lot of European comics too, but like a lot of American books, I had a lot of moments where I was confused by the action. Just sort of like who was doing what in certain moments. There's like the first test that they have where like I forget the Ochaku. Ochako. Like I'm gonna get through this entire episode. I'm gonna be happy if I say manga correctly and anime correctly. But like and I was very confused about what her power was and what she was doing for a second. You know, there were some bits like that, but I think that's more like a almost manga literacy thing for me. Like
it's a little bit of that, but also like just in the context of the story, like Deku's your point of view character, and he's finding out all of these quirks from these other people for the first time as well. Something about manga art that we haven't touched on yet, it's in black and white compared to American comics, which are typically full color. You have some American comics that run in black and white, but usually they're full color. So you have to like respect the fact that Horikoshi is able to do so much with the action and setting the mood
Yeah.
and the tone and all of this in just black and white, whereas so
True.
many American comics rely on heavy use of color to help signify a change in mood or atmosphere.
Oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, no, that's a good point because you see like the red sky, you know things are going to be ominous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, but you can't really do that with this. So yeah.
I also had a moment, like actually to your point about color, like I had to kind of figure out there's a part where All Might is the regular form of All Might.
Yeah.
Like is constantly gritting his teeth and things are like shooting out of his
It's his blood.
Right,
Yeah,
and
he's
I
spitting blood.
had a
Yeah.
couple times like, is he vomiting? Like, but
Yes.
again, it was one of those things where I'm trying to kind of like get used to the manga like humor style of humor and like how different emotions work and stuff like that. I just never really got that when I was reading like Berserk. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just never had that same experience. So reading a shonen for the first time, I was like, okay, this is like highly emotional. Okay, I get it. So
I think it's also worth touching on. We keep saying the word shonen.
Yeah.
I feel like we should take a quick moment and explain what shonen
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
to our watchers who may not be familiar with the term. Shonen manga is manga that is designed with young boys in mind.
Right,
Shonen is just a term for young boy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So shonen manga is for sort of like school-aged kids most of the time, whereas seinen, which you referred to earlier, is for adult men.
Right, yeah.
That's
I was
the
always
sort
reading
of-
the dark stuff. Apparently.
Yeah, a more adult demographic.
Right,
So yeah, typically speaking, shonen manga is the most popular sort of form of manga in Japan. It's the biggest demographic. But that being said, despite the fact that this is written with young boys in mind, it's so universal.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it really is. But before we get into that deeper, we're going to go ahead and start getting into the story section. Maki, I'm going to pick on you first. What did you think of the story?
So, like I said before, I'm going into it having already watched the anime. So, for me, I was kind of just in my head, just looking at the parallels of the anime to the manga. And one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is that Bakugo is kind of a jerk. He's like, but like, he is a real big jerk in the manga. And I think that really kind of establishes right off the jump not only the kind of character that Bakugo is, but who Deku is. You have this kid who all he wants is to be a hero or to be someone special. And I think that's something that we can all relate to. We all just want to be the very best in some form or another. And so to see him go through the point of him looking up to All Might, to him discovering he doesn't have a quirk, and to him meeting All Might. And the one thing that another thing that really stuck out to me was, and kind of let me know that, oh, I'm gonna be in my feels, is when he kind of narrates that, like, in the moment, what he wanted his mother to say to him was, you can be a hero. And you know, we've all had those moments in life where all we want is for someone to assure us that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I was sold at that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's the moment that sells it for a lot of people is that moment where Deku and where All Might comes back to Deku and is like, hey, you know what? You can be a hero. I do want to touch on like the overarching thing about My Hero Academia, almost all of which is introduced in this book. My Hero Academia takes place in a world where 80% of society has a superpower of some sort called a quirk. And Deku is unfortunately one of the rare few born completely quirkless. He does not have any quirk whatsoever, and he desperately wants to be a hero because in a world where 80% of people have superpowers, of course you're going to have people use those powers for evil, which means you need professional superheroes to rise up and handle those threats. So Deku wants to go to this high school called UA, which is sort of like the academy that trains the next generation of superheroes, and he tries to apply. He was going to apply anyway, in spite of not having a quirk at all, and instead he comes face to face with All Might, the symbol of peace, the number one hero in the world, and All Might basically says, I can give you my quirk, like I can give you my power. And so he trains him, and Deku is accepted into UA and begins his hero academia at UA. And it's a really cool concept, because you get the superpower stuff, obviously. You get all these cool kids with really cool designs, as we just touched on in the artwork, and they've all got really cool powers. But like, so you get the cool superhero part, but then because they're all like high school freshmen, basically, you have this coming of age story happening parallel to the hero action, and I love that so much about this.
Yeah, I really went into this thinking that it was going to be something else, because I don't know, I saw the character of All Might and all I could think of was the boys, and there's like the like Captain America, like the jerk Captain America guy, and so I'm like looking at All Might and I'm like, oh, is he going to be a big jerk? I thought he was going to be like this really snooty guy.
I was like, Homeland,
the villain?
I was like,
and
All
then
Might's kind of sketchy. I don't know.
I was like, he seems like he could be a jerk, and then like you realize that when he doesn't like have his power, he's kind of this like homelessy like looking dude, and you're just like,
he turns into somebody who listened to Sublime in the 90s.
That's
which is not a dig on Sublime, but
that's a really apt way of describing
it really
looks,
is.
though.
But
like,
I
like
love that idea that it was like you see this guy and you're like, oh man, he's gonna be such a jerk, and then you realize like actually he's super humble, and he's a lot like Deku, where it's like it was given to him and he took on this power. He wanted to be someone that,
like, not only that, but like he needed to see like the quirkless wonder Deku spring into action to save the kid who bullies him every single day, to realize like, actually, you know what? This quirkless kid can actually be a hero. He has like the mental wherewithal, like he has the instincts of what it actually means to be a hero, to spring into action to save someone without hesitation.
Now, do you think that that had to be something inherently in someone that didn't have a quirk? Like, do you think that someone who has a quirk could still have as much of that, like, that sense of, like, wanting to be a hero as Deku did? Or is it the fact that he didn't have powers something that made him...
I think it's partially that. Like, the fact that the creator is like a big Marvel Comics guy, immediately with the Deku thing, I was like, okay, this is Steve Rogers. This is kind of like Captain America. Like, I can get in line with this. And I think that's kind of the same idea. This sort of like, I'm the little guy. Like, I don't have like, I'm not a force of nature or anything like that by myself. But regardless if I have powers or not, I still have a heart of gold.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, because like even All Might mentions it, it's like there was a crowd of people there, all of whom had quirks, but you were the one whose body moved just for the sake of springing into action. Like your legs moved before your brain had a chance to process. So,
now, if you guys could have a quirk, what would your quirk be?
Like one of the ones from
anything.
This,
or what was your favorite quirk that was in the story? Like what?
I think I want to be Best Genus.
Best Genus.
Best Genus.
Yes.
Okay.
Hear me out.
He's so good.
He's won the Best Genus Award for the 9th year in a row. He's just a really laid back hero. I believe his quirk is that he can just manipulate fabric.
Yeah, he can control thread.
And he can control thread. So, and as a cosplayer, I think that could be really handy. So, I would like Best Genus's quirk.
Is this is the homeroom teacher? Is that the?
No.
Oh, okay.
Best Genus isn't even in this.
Oh, okay.
He was very briefly. He had like the jeans up to here.
He has like jeans all the way up to his nose. Yeah. He has a really cool like 80s haircut.
Yeah. Okay.
He's amazing.
He's
I would
fabulous.
love to be Miss Genus.
Okay. Miss Genus.
Miss Genus. I don't know. Like, there's so many cool quirks, which I love about this, because like Horikoshi has been so good at like creating superpowers. Like, it's one thing for All Might where it's just like he's strong, like he's big and muscular and strong, but then you have like Bakugo's where it's like, okay, he can create explosion, but the way he creates explosion is that like his sweat is nitroglycerin basically.
Yeah.
And you have You have Tenya, Ida, who I've cosplayed before. I'm gonna send a photo so Kyle can be like, ta-da, and put that up. But Ida I like a lot because it's like, okay, cool, he's a speedster, like he's fast, but the way that he's fast is he literally has engines in his calves. Like that's how he propels himself, is by literally having like organic engines as part of his body. So like, not just inventing like new cool things like, oh, a superpower of creating and manipulating thread and stuff like that, but to put these twists on sort of like classic powers like super strength and flight and, you know, explodey things and
naval lasers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, anyone can have laser eyes, but you got a laser belly button.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It took me a second to realize what was going on with that too. I was like, what is, okay, he literally is laser belly button. Okay, I got you.
And I like that they have weaknesses. Like, you
Yeah.
know, like they can only
Yeah.
do it for so long, or, you know, such and such happens when they use it. It's not like a superpower that makes them super almighty.
Yeah.
Right, where it's like Ochako can like float things for a period of time and then like release it, which causes them to fall. But like if she does it too much or does it on something that's too big, it makes her feel sick.
That's I got to bring this back up. That's old school comic book superhero stuff.
Yeah.
Like I feel that's stuff they don't really do a lot of anymore.
No,
It's just
now it's just like they have a superpower and that's it.
That's it. But like the balance of like, you know, it's a gift and a curse, or like, you know, that's just sort of that old school Stanley stuff.
Or like how
like,
it
you know,
works, like
exactly.
the Flash, like
Right.
that was one of the reasons why I liked the show, was like they were like, well, he has like the super metabolism, so he has to like eat all the time.
Eat
I was
all
like,
the time.
those things
That's
you
a
don't
nice
think
detail.
about.
I think
Right.
that, you know, thinking of that and relating it back to the discussion of what quirk you would have, there's a guy who has a quirk where like he gets strong based on like burning like calories in his system, so like he eats a lot of sugar, and so like his quirk is called Sugar Rush, so like he eats a lot of sugary foods,
God, I
and then
want
he's
that
like
one.
super strong, so I'm like, I want that one.
Yeah.
So I have an excuse to like eat all of the snack foods that I want to eat that I probably shouldn't eat because they're bad for me.
I actually wanted to circle back something that you said earlier
Yeah.
about like just society and superheroes, because I think it's interesting that this manga like does a thing where like the superheroes change society instead of society changing the superhero,
Yes.
which is another thing I kind of feel like American comic books have kind of gravitated towards lately. Like it's like the superhero is like this great individual, but all the heaviness of like reality like changes their perspective. And this book is more about like, no, the superheroes came into society and they changed like how our government works, our education system works. Matter of fact, there's a Napoleon Bonaparte quote, because when I was reading the book, I was like sort of like, am I making this up? Is this me just projecting, or is this like actually something that the writer's going for? And then in the book, one of the teachers quotes Napoleon Bonaparte, and he says, "True heroism consists in being superior to the ills of life." And I was like, well, boom, I love that. I was like, that's his mission statement, and I'm for that. I actually want more of that in American comics. So.
Yeah, there you go. And on that, thank you guys for this riveting topic of the plot. We could go on forever, but now we're going to go on to some final thoughts. Moving on to our final thoughts, let's find out, did you guys, anyone here watch the anime? And if so, I know you did. What are your thoughts on the anime versus the manga?
Well, like I said in the very beginning, some of the panels in the manga, you could just see them. Like I could visualize the moment I saw them in anime form. Like when All Might goes from when he's like, oh my goodness, and then he just turns from kind of like sickly All Might to just like heroic All Might.
Thick All Might.
It's like I've seen that in GIF form so many times. So like to see how accurate and how true to form and how seriously Kohei takes this anime is really, really cool. And I really like how they explore everyone's quirks. I like how everyone kind of gets a time to shine or a time to be great, which is something that you see through the anime, and I can only imagine you see more of through the manga. And I mean, it makes me definitely want to read on, even though I've seen it before.
Yeah, again, as I mentioned, I started with the anime and have only really started with the manga recently, mostly because it's like, you have these big gaps between seasons, and I'm like, but I need more My Hero Academia content, so I'm just going to read, I guess. No, I mean, the anime's great. As we are recording this, I am prepping to see the second My Hero film in theaters this weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to do that. I saw the first one in theaters. Like I've been basically like after the first couple episodes of watching the anime, I was like, cool, I'm all in on this series now. Like it's become one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of transforming the manga into the anime, because that first scene with Mount Lady, and she comes in and she's like coming over like everything. You see that in the manga, and then you actually like, it's so well done in the anime where it's like straight out of the pages. I was like, wow, this is a really good, recreation.
The anime is really remarkably faithful to the shots that Horikoshi established in the manga.
And I really like that idea of that kind of parallelness,
Right.
But now my other question is there a character in the series that you'd like to see get their own backstory? Now, I don't know if some of them do later on in the series, but for me, like, I want to know what happened to All Might. Like, how did he get the power?
Yeah,
I want to
that,
see his backstory.
Yeah.
Because I want to know how someone chose him in, like, his normal form, and we're like, you're the guy that's going to be All Might. Because I would not pick that guy at all.
Oddly enough, I don't know why, but for some reason I was really intrigued by the homeroom teacher. I know I brought him up earlier, but at the same time, he clearly has like some sort of beef with All Might too. Like they kind of have like a little bit of a confrontation, like in the latter half of the book. So yeah, I don't know. It's like his introduction was kind of kooky. He was in a sleeping bag.
Yeah. Aizawa is like such a mood. Just so you guys know, like he's so done with everyone. He's just like, I'm just gonna roll up in the sleeping bag, deal with it. Yeah, I would love to see more of like sort of the established pro heroes in general. Like we do see a lot of them later on in the series and whatnot, but most of the sort of like arc-centered characters are kids. So we don't really get to spend like a ton of sort of like individual time with a lot of these established pro heroes like Aizawa or Mount Lady or any of them. I would love to see like, okay, cool, like the UA experience is really cool, but I think it'd be really cool to just sort of like have a side manga that's like, this is what it's like to be an adult established pro hero post-graduation. Like this is what the rest of society outside of the school is like.
So they've done spin-offs, right? There's Smash and there's like another one that's out right now.
Vigilantes.
Right, is that kind of is that the same idea or is it like?
Not so much.
Vigilantes is more like, kind of like, not quite heroes, but like not quite villains. They like go their own path.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tell you who I would like to see. Speaking of spin-offs, I like just like kooky, fun, slice of life kind of like spin-offs. So I would like to see kind of like a day in the life of Uraraka and Robbey just like doing their internship and just like hanging out, because they have little nuggets of that in the anime, and I would just like to see maybe just like a couple books on them just getting to be in their internship without
even just like a one-shot.
Yeah,
like,
without it being some harrowing thing that they're going through.
I feel the same way about Ida, because like there's a later arc where Ida's like sort of the central character of the arc, and he does some questionable things in the course of that arc, and I'm like, oh my sweet baby boy, what are they doing to you? But like he establishes that he comes from like a family of pro heroes, where his older brother is this hero known as Ingenium, and it would be cool just to see like, okay, but what's it like to like grow up in a family that's full of established pro heroes? Like, what was his childhood like?
Yeah, I mean, there really are so many routes that we can go with this. But I'm going to have to stop us for a moment because we could keep going. And we asked the internet, what do you love about My Hero Academia? And this is what you guys thought. So Matthew Corey Adam Pierce says, my wife and I love this series. Chris Leak, there are so many reasons. The unique look at American-style superheroes, the excellent characters, the great stories. There are so many great tearjerker moments that really illustrate what it means to be a hero. From actually Lord Frieza on Twitter, we have more words because each character starts out as a stereotype, but each one moves on from them, some more quickly than others. Every character has strengths and flaws, and they matter. Each character learns the importance of not only their quirks, but also of their place in society. Dave Mieja, I love My Hero Academia because it's everything I want X-Men to be, but hasn't been for a very long time. Young adults with crazy powers and even crazier appearances because of them. What did you guys think of that last statement?
That was, no, like,
I think it's
it was
pretty
in my
spot
notes.
on.
Yeah.
It was in my notes. It's like, I came into this, like, every description anybody's given me of, like, my heroes, I've been always kind of like, this is X-Men. Come on, guys. But I mean, it really does have own identity, its own identity. But like, yeah, I agree with that. More often than not, X-Men is not really centered around the school. Like, truthfully, after the 2000 movie, that's when they really started honing in on the school. Before, there was like a creepy mansion with this old guy, and you know, it's like, and they wouldn't really be in the school at all. So I actually enjoyed like more of the adolescent, you know, stuff. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, and then bouncing from that comparison to X-Men, what do you guys think are some recommendations on what people should read after this? If they want to kind of continue on, whether it's with manga or that kind of storyline?
I mean, I think the other big one as far as manga anime takes on superheroes is One Punch Man. So if you really enjoy My Hero Academia and you want something maybe a little more serious, maybe slightly more adult, focusing on adults rather than on children, One Punch Man is probably it. I also just think, like, if you're watching this and you haven't read My Hero Academia but you enjoy superhero books, please read My Hero Academia. It's such a manga for people who don't already read manga. I always get hung up on the fact that, like, you have so many comic readers out there who don't read manga because they're like, oh, I don't like manga. But like, treating manga as a genre is the wrong way to approach manga. Like, manga is just a different style of comics. It's just a very slightly different medium. So like, please read My Hero Academia. Please read One Punch Man. Please read everything else people are going to recommend to you. Because manga is just so good, and if you get hung up on treating it like a genre, you're going to miss out on so many good different series.
That's actually another thing I like about this is, like, yeah, it kind of proves that, and almost the opposite of your point, but also to complement your point, it proves that, like, the superhero category is a vessel to tell any type of story you want to.
It's, as we said, it's universal.
It's universal, right?
What about you, Maki? What do you recommend people read?
So I am going to stay in the realm of shonen, and I'm going to say another one that's really hot this season, Demon Slayer. It just has really dynamic characters. I feel like it tells a really succinct story. One thing that I really like about anime and manga is it seems that shonen that is coming out, like, in the past, like, 2 to 3 years, they've really gotten a formula down where they know how much filler is too much filler. They know, you know, how to, you know, pace an arc in a story where this character goes from point A to point B. And I really think that Demon Slayer does a really good job in how they kind of progress their lead character, Tanjiro. He's the best boy in Demon Slayer. and I just for that kind of, like, this character who hopes against hope and who just wants to be better for himself, but for the people around him, I would definitely Demon Slayer, 100%.
Nice.
And I'm going to bring it all the way back to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Like, go back to the source, go back to, like, some really good action, really get that, like, firm background into old school anime. So that would be mine.
I'm gonna probably, I guess I'm gonna go off the reservation. I know we're supposed to be doing manga. I never read the manga. I've only seen the anime. Like, Project A-ko was one of my first anime experiences. Like, it's from the 80s. I used to watch it on the Sci-Fi Channel, like, repeatedly, like, before I actually owned it.
Back in the day when Sci-Fi would just, like, run random
right, like at 8 a.m. in the morning for whatever on Saturdays. And it's a teen superhero anime. Like, I mean, and on top of that, it has a school component to it. There's a bunch of rivals inside the school, and there's a cool twist at the end that I don't want to give away, but I remember watching it as an American comic book reader and just being like, that's cool.
Nice. Awesome. Those are some great recommendations, and this is also my reminder to you guys to make sure to head to your friendly local comic shop, pick up a copy of My Hero Academia, any of the other suggestions that were listed off here, and if you don't know where your local comic shop is, head to comicshoplocator.com to find the one nearest you. Now, before we wrap up, guys, do you guys have anything that you'd like to plug before we head out? Maki, are you up to anything new these days?
No, I'm actually just nesting with my fur babies and my fur husband. But you can find me on the internet, Instagram and Twitter at Maki Roll Official, where I post my hot takes on wrestling.
There you go. And then Carrie?
Yeah, so I'm the assistant editor at Gemstone Publishing, the home of the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. Right now, you should be able to head into your local comic shop and pre-order the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide #1 Facsimile Edition, a reprint of the very first Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. We also have Overstreet at 50, which is sort of like this historical companion book that we're coming out with, and it's not just looking at the last 50 years of Overstreet, but also looking at sort of the last 50 years of comic book collecting in general. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And then this July at San Diego Comic-Con, we have the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide #50 coming out.
Wow.
So we've been very busy at Gemstone so far this year, but we've got a lot of cool stuff down the pipeline.
Oh, that's awesome. What about you, Troy?
Actually, I will co-sign what Carrie's saying. Like, we do a show every week here called Previews World Weekly, and part of that show is actually going to be some of the more valuable comics, which is an effort to promote the Overstreet anniversary. So join me in Ashton every single week, and also I want to point out, according to Carrie, I'm a weeb. And I don't know if that's offensive or accurate, but I'm going to go with it either way. So
There you go. Welcome to Weebdom. All right, and with that, if you guys have a graphic novel suggestion that you'd like to have us cover on the show, leave that in the comments below so we can take up your ideas. Also, this is your reminder to follow us on Previews World on all of our other social media, so that way you don't miss out on any videos or discussion topics. And remember, guys, heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching Previews World Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.